Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things, and welcome to another video. And today I have a favour to ask you. So, when I say a favour to ask you, I mostly mean a favour of those of you who like the works of Anthony Trollope, which I know is actually quite a lot of you. I know he's a slightly niche author, but I think because I talk about Anthony Trollope a ton on this channel, I have gathered many people amongst my subscribers who really love Anthony Trollope as well. And I'm currently sort of planning out various sort of projects and videos in relation to Anthony Trollope, and I thought I would like to ask the opinions of other people who like the works of Anthony Trollope. So before anything else, if you are newer to my channel or you stumbled across this video at random and you don't know who Anthony Trollope is, he is this man. He was a Victorian author who was very prolific. He wrote 47 novels. I was about to say all of which are amazing, nearly all of which are amazing, but they're kind of all amazing. And he is one of my favourite authors ever. I have said for a very, very long time that my favourite author is Charles Dickens, and my favourite author is Charles Dickens. I have loved Charles Dickens since I was like 13, and I love Dickens so much. But Anthony Trollope he's probably second place now. He's probably dethroned Jane Austen and Elizabeth Gaskell, who maybe are now in third place. Maybe Anthony Trollope is just joint favourite with Dickens for me now. I don't know, but Anthony Trollope is marvellous. I love his books so much, and I get such joy and comfort out of reading his books. And I have been working my way through Anthony Trollope's 47 novels over the past decade, I guess. I read 3 of his books as a teenager, and then I got sort of fully into Anthony Trollope when I was in my early 20s, and since then I have read, nearly all of his books. I, at the point of filming, have 2 of his books left. I'm about to start one of them, and then I've got 1 left to read in March. And then I will have read all of his novels, which is very exciting. And once I've finished reading them all, I guess I'll just have to start reading them again. I have already read a couple of them a few times, but you know, there's a lot more that I want to reread. Anyway, once I finish reading all of the works of Anthony Trollope, there are a lot of videos that I want to make. Anthony Trollope, as I said, is a sort of not exactly a niche author. I would say that as Victorian authors go, he's probably like second tier. I feel like most people have heard of like Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, the Brontes, maybe George Eliot, and then Anthony Trollope and Elizabeth Gaskell are maybe on the next tier, with Wilkie Collins maybe Anthony Trollope's even on the tier below that, I'm not sure. Every now and then I think about the fact that I studied a Victorian literature module at university and there wasn't a single book by Anthony Trollope on the course, which I think was an error of judgment because his books are so good. But anyway, Anthony Trollope is an author I would say that when people love, they really love. I think a lot of people start reading Anthony Trollope and just get so much joy out of them, they just keep reading and reading his books. But I think he can also be a slightly daunting author to begin because he wrote 47 novels, as I said, and also the most famous of his literary works is his Barsetshire Chronicles, which is a series of 6 books. And while the first one is very short, the rest of them are pretty long. You know, here are book 5 and 6 in the series. It's not a short series. And although Anthony Trollope wrote a lot of books of various lengths, I think some of his most famous books do tend to be the longer ones, and I think sometimes that puts people off. I am very regularly asked on this channel, where's the best place to start with Anthony Trollope, what's the best Anthony Trollope novel, etc. And I have, you know, given some advice on this before, but I think that when I have finished reading all of his books, I will be better placed to give such advice. So once I have finished reading all of Anthony Trollope's books, I'm going to make many, many videos. I made a list, and I think there are something like 8 or 9 videos that I want to make about Anthony Trollope. I'm going to do a massive tier ranking of all of his books. I'm also going to do, you know, my favourite characters, a video about his 2 big series, a video about my favourite standalones, a video about where to start with Anthony Trollope, and various other things. However, I think on the one hand, I'm a useful person to tell you where to start with Anthony Trollope because I will have read all of his 47 books. But on the other hand, I do kind of think that I love Anthony Trollope so much, and I love like nearly all of his books so much, that I'm also not that useful a person to ask, because basically every time I read one of his books I'm like, well, that was amazing, wasn't it? And there's been a couple of incidences lately where I had been thinking about an Anthony Trollope book that was like top tier for me, and then I was talking to someone else about it and they were like, oh yeah, that was quite middling for me. So I was thinking that I would like to try and make my sort of greatest Anthony Trollope novels, or where to start with Anthony Trollope novels video, less subjective and gather information from the crowd, as it were, the Anthony Trollope loving crowd that I know exists in pockets on BookTube. So all of that is a very long way of saying I have set up a survey. I've done it on Google Forms, and there are a few questions on this survey. So I will put the survey up on the screen now and quickly take you through it to explain what it is. And if you would like to partake in the survey, that would be wonderful. And you can take part in the survey whether you have read a lot of Anthony Trollope or a little of Anthony Trollope. Even if you just read one book by Anthony Trollope but you liked it, that's fine, you can take part. In fact, one of the questions is like, what Anthony Trollope book are you looking forward to reading? So even if you've read no Anthony Trollope books but you would like to soon, you can take part in the survey. I've made it so that no question is like compulsory, if you see what I mean. But anyway, let me show you the survey and it will make more sense. So the first question, as you can see, is what is or are your favourite novels by Anthony Trollope? So feel free to give me one title or like 7 if you prefer, that's fine. The second question is, where would you say is a good place to start with Anthony Trollope's work? So, you know, in your opinion, having read 1 to 5, 40 Anthony Trollope novels, where would you say is a good place to start? The third question is, if you haven't read them all, which Anthony Trollope novel are you most excited to read? So as I said, even if you haven't yet read any Anthony Trollope, but there is a book by him you really want to read, I would like to know that too, because that will be useful in giving me a sense of like, what is the most popular Anthony Trollope novel? Because I think that would be quite interesting to know. So those 3 questions are all like pretty straightforward. And then we get to question 4, which is a bit more complicated and you absolutely don't have to do. As I said, none of the questions are compulsory. If you just want to do the first 3 and submit the survey and it's taken you 3 minutes, that's fine. But if you care to give me like 10 minutes of your time, you could do question 4, where I have asked you to rate all of the works of Anthony Trollope. Obviously, I'm assuming that many people have not read all of them. So as you can see, I've got 47 rows for all of the novels of Anthony Trollope. And then the columns are sort of 1 star through to 5 star, and a column for if you haven't read the book yet. Say you have read the Barsetshire Chronicles, but nothing else, you could rate the Barsetshire Chronicles for however many stars you like each book, and then you could just click not read yet for everything else. The way I have ordered the list is first off the 6 books that make up the Barsetshire Chronicles, then the 6 books that make up the Palliser novels, because those 2 series are pretty popular by him, and then the rest of Anthony Trollope's many novels are in alphabetical order by title. And if you have time to rate all of Anthony Trollope's books for me so that I can get a sense of what the best loved Anthony Trollope books are, that would be lovely. But I also appreciate that you might not have time for that, and that's fine. Since filming this video, I have in fact added another question to the survey, which is, do you have a favourite character from the works of Anthony Trollope? So that's the next question. There are therefore more questions than I said originally, but there we go. Then the 5th question is just like any other Anthony Trollope related thoughts. You know, if you have a recommendation of where not to start with Anthony Trollope, a book you didn't get on with by him, then, you know, that will probably be the place to put it, or anything else you have to say about Anthony Trollope and his books. And then the final question is about the video content I will make about Anthony Trollope. So we'll go back to me looking at the camera and I will explain what I mean. I also forgot to say, I will probably leave this survey open until the middle of April. So sort of about 6-7 weeks, I guess, and then I will close it. I will put a firm date down in the description and on the survey itself, but if you could reply before then, that would be lovely. But I've been thinking about how I want to do a lot of videos about Anthony Trollope once I finish all of his books, and I was initially thinking that I would do an author week. So author weeks used to be something I did a lot on my channel. The first one I did was Jane Austen week when I was like 22 and a baby booktuber. And I had a week where every day I had a video up about a different one of Jane Austen's novels in a ranking. And then I did the same for all of Charles Dickens's novels, Thomas Hardy, Elizabeth Gaskell. I've also done that for both Anthony Trollope's 2 series, I think. And I feel like there's someone else I've done that for that I've forgotten. Oh, the Brontes. Is it anyone else? I'm not sure. Anyway, I used to do those quite a lot and I really enjoyed them. And I was thinking I would like to do something similar for Anthony Trollope, but I'm not going to make an individual video for every single one of his books because that would be 7 weeks worth of videos every day, which I do not have time for. And also, while I will have read all of Anthony Trollope's 47 novels, some of them I will have read very recently and some of them I haven't read for like 10 years, and my memory of them is fresh enough for like a ranking but not fresh enough for an individual video. So I'm not going to do that kind of author week, but I was thinking I could do a week where every day there is a video up that is about Anthony Trollope. So that was my first thought. However, I think quite a lot of the videos I want to make about Anthony Trollope will be quite long. Like if I'm doing a tier ranking of all 47 novels, that's going to be like an hour-long video. So maybe packing them all into 1 week will be a bit much. So my other thought was either I basically have a whole month where like every video I post is about Anthony Trollope, you know, 2 videos a week all about Anthony Trollope, or I could spread them out a bit more and have, I don't know, Trollope Thursday, so that every Thursday from the middle of April to some point in June is a video about Anthony Trollope. That could be fun. I feel like that also is probably the most manageable way to make all the videos I want to make, considering the time that it will probably take me to make. So I don't know, but I thought I would ask what people would prefer. And actually this would be useful to know, both from people who love Anthony Trollope and are excited to watch lots of videos about Anthony Trollope, and also those of you who have zero interest in Anthony Trollope. Although if you have zero interest in Anthony Trollope, you probably haven't got this far in the video, but you know, maybe every other video, 1 video a week for like 2 months about Anthony Trollope would be the best way. I don't know. I was hoping to kick off my many Anthony Trollope videos towards the end of April, because Anthony Trollope's birthday is towards the end of April, and that seemed fun, and I also should have finished off the last 2 Anthony Trollope books I have to read by then. However, I know that I'm quite busy in April, so I think especially if I am going to try and do like a week's worth of videos in one go, that would probably be May. However, if I'm doing 1 video a week about Anthony Trollope for 2 months, I could definitely start that in April and just continue. I will have a think about that, but I also thought I'd ask people what they would prefer. Is there anything else I had to say? I don't know. Basically, I would just really like people to give me their thoughts about Anthony Trollope, where they think is a good place to start, what their own personal favourite is, so that I can temper my own subjective thoughts about Anthony Trollope's books, and also like gather other people's thoughts and pull them together and get a sense of like, you know, what is the most read Anthony Trollope book on BookTube and beyond? What are people's favourite Anthony Trollope books? Where do people think is a good place to start with Anthony Trollope? And all of that kind of thing. So if you like Anthony Trollope, please do take part in this survey. And if you know other people who like Anthony Trollope, please do send them this survey. They don't have to be people who watch BookTube or make BookTube videos or anything like that. They could just be, you know, someone from your book club. That's fine. I don't usually ask people to like share videos and stuff, but if you would like to share this one and get the survey into more hands, that would be very, very nice, because I would really like to garner as many people's Anthony Trollope opinions as possible. I think the only other thing I was going to say is that I have limited my questions, and I will limit most of my content to his novels. I have really enjoyed a lot of his short stories, and I know he did also write quite a lot of non-fiction, but I'm just sort of keeping the survey, and I will keep most of my video content focused on his 47 novels, because, you know, 47 novels is quite enough to be getting along with. I think that's all I have to say for today. I feel like this has mostly just been a logistical please answer my survey video that's turned into quite a long ramble about Anthony Trollope and how wonderful he is. But, you know, I feel like nothing less is to be expected from my channel. So yes, I have 2 Anthony Trollope books left to read. I'm about to start The Landleaguers, and then I'm going to read John Caldergate, hopefully in March. Maybe I'll finish it in April, and then I will be done, and it'll be very exciting. But I'm also possibly going to immediately start rereading The Claverings, because I've been thinking about that one a lot lately, and I feel like that was like a real favourite when I read it, but I don't remember it that well, and I really want to reread it and check whether it belongs in like the top tier of my massive tier ranking that I'm going to do soon. Anyway, okay, that's been quite enough rambling from now. I don't know why I'm quite so hyper about Anthony Trollope today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.